And we see that maggots started to form, but on the one that was in the vacuum sealed area, there were no maggots appeared there. But you know what? Even though science had begun to repute this whole idea of spontaneous generation, still people clung to it. Still people embraced it. So much so that we get to the start of the 1900s, the start of the 20th century, and there is a Prussian zoologist by the name of Ernst Haeckel. And Ernst Haeckel, when he was confronted with the fact, and it's slow, people take time to understand things, but when he was confronted that the fact that the scientific evidence weighed heavily against spontaneous generation, this is what he said. Look at this. Here's the man, Ernst Haeckel, this is what he said. Spontaneous generation must be true. Otherwise, it would be necessary to believe in what? Necessary to believe in a creator. Here is the great truth behind every theory, and it's all about accountability. Who are we accountable to? If we embrace the idea of a creator God, then there are moral responsibilities that rest heavily upon us. If we believe in evolution, that we are creatures of habit, that we're animals of chance, then we have no higher authority in which we are accountable for. But you see, century after century, we see that the theory of evolution was downplayed. It was minimized because of spontaneous generation. But then we come to the time of the 1800s. And we see that Charles Darwin published his book, Origin of the Species, in 1859. And evolution, by its emphasis on natural processing and random processing and natural selection, presented to the world now a legitimate theory in which the world could be a world without God. Now, one of the strongest advocates for the evolutionary theory has been a man from Oxford University, is still alive today, Richard Dawkins. He was here a while ago, strutting his stuff all around Australia. And we see that this zoologist is one of the great defenders of evolutionary thought, even today. And I want you to read a little about what he says. He's written many books, one's called The Blind Watchmaker, the other one's called The God Delusion, and on and on. All it does is challenge the existence of God. But notice what he says here. He says, what I care about is what does he say there? What is true? What is true about the universe? If it was true that evolution had adverse effects on religion and caused people to smash windows and rob old ladies, which it doesn't, by the way, but even if it did, that still wouldn't in any way affect its truth value. We've got to take the truth. We've got to take the truth about the universe and the truth about the world and separate from the moral and political consequences, whatever that may be. So Dawkins says that we have to separate the moral consequences away from the truth of the universe, away from the truth of the political system or the political consequences, whatever they may be. And to me, it sounds like certainly a formula for a dysfunctional society. That's what it sounds for me. What he says here, though, is he says, what I care about is the truth. All I care about is the truth. But what we discover today, over 150, well, nearly 150 years after the time of Charles Darwin, as scientists advance with DNA research and the like, the whole evolutionary theory, instead of appearing as a reliable alternative to the creation story, it's more and more looking like a patchwork quilt with holes that are becoming larger and larger and cannot be filled. by the way, when we talk about evolution, we always use the phrase evolutionary theory because that's all it is. Evolution is just a theory. In other words, it's an idea. It is not something that has been tested and proved. Scientists have not been able to observe in a clinical experiment evolution in play. They've not been able to see the links that evolve and change. That's why it is still called a theory. There is no evidence to support it, but people, they miss this point. Every honest man and woman, every fair-minded man and woman wants to know the origin of all things. They want to know where this world came from. They want to know how it is that the sun came into existence. And where did we come from? How did we get here? The Bible actually tells us that God created the world in 6 literal days. The Bible tells us that on day 6 he created man. And at the end of day 6, and in each and every day, each and every 24-hour day, God says, and it was good, it was good, it was good. In other words, God's creation, according to the Bible, didn't need any improvement. It was good. It didn't have to evolve to a higher level. It didn't have to graduate to a more functional system. The Bible says that it was good. And we see in the book of Genesis that it was an all-wise creator who created everything fully developed and functional, ready for its proper use in the world that God had created. When we think about evolution, though, what's the theory of evolution? Well, the theory of evolution is this, that way back then, that this world, about 500 million years ago, we see that simple sea-crawling creatures, evolved into fish. All of this was preempted by a huge Big Bang that got everything going. And this world of ours, it actually started with simple seabed dwelling creatures about 500 million years ago that evolved into fish. And then we see that the larger animals came, larger dinosaurs, and then mammals came onto the scene of action about 50 million years ago. And then 2 million years ago, mankind, our ancestors, came onto the scene of action. Now, from the overview of both of these theories that I've just given you, it is quite clear that they are very, very different. Very, very different indeed. However, there is one point in which the Bible and evolutionary theory agree on, and that is both started in chaos. The Bible says that the world was without form and void, and evolutionary thought says that it began with a big bang. So that's the point in which they agree. However, that's where the similarities end, because the more we study into the human body